I'm from Hong Kong originally. I've spent my life traveling around 3 or 4 countries in Asia before I landed in the US. I came to Canada in 1976 when I was 25 years old. I was in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen massacre in 1989 and marched with the Hong Kongers massively on the street. So when I came back to Canada, I joined with a lot of my friends who had started this organization, the Toronto Association for Democracy in China. And I've been involved as chair of the association since 1996. So China has always been keeping a hand in the so-called diasporic community, not just in Canada, but around the world. China always look at you, an ethnic Chinese, as their own citizens, as their own people. There's no differentiation. I was detained in Tibet in the 80s while during a Tibetan protest. And I told them I'm Canadian. And they said, no, you're Chinese. Your passport doesn't matter. Once a Chinese, always a Chinese. China has, in that sense, a very, very not so hidden agenda of trying to control the diaspora community, making sure you're pro-China. And that's reflected in the current society right now in terms of how they want to interfere into the affairs of the Chinese Canadian communities, local Chinese Canadian communities. There's a whole community of proxies. What I call proxies are people who are kind of beholden to China in terms of having a commercial interest or family ties, or they're not spies. They're just people who say, we're actually more quote unquote loyal to China than Canada. Very subtle, very simple, like become a president of the local chamber of commerce, or or taking over the board of a Chinese association. That's the community level. But then you're talking about current modern China, where they infiltrated in a lot of the sectors of society. And we're not just talking about federal politicians, we're talking about provincial politicians. We're talking about municipal politics. We're even down to board of trustee, school board level, where, in Toronto we had some nasty fights about people who are on the board of trustee of a school board bringing in kind of, very, very kind of pro-China dialogue into the schools, into high schools, for example. The transnational repression is obviously at the very tip of the kind of China interference. We're talking about direct personal harm, psychological harm, physical harm caused to critics of China, threatening phone calls that are in the middle of the night that just to let you know that we're watching you, that you better watch what you're saying. And now obviously with technology, you have the Facebook, the WeChat, all the social media, where you have no idea how, let's say, TikTok, can be so immersed in your life that they can start picking up a lot of information. I have friends who are in kind of the human rights movement, who receive videos of him being burning in effigy, obviously fake video, or being beheaded, in a fake video, and sent to him and say, you'll be like this if you don't stop criticizing us, or you don't stop what you're doing. If you're out here in Canada, you're causing trouble to China, you better watch out. We can get to your family. And this explains the whole thing about why you can have a lot of Chinese international students coming out to do counter-protest. If you don't do that for the consulate, your scholarship gets stopped, your exit visa get denied, your family gets into trouble, because every single student here from China is identified and logged in by the Chinese consulate. Unfortunately, for a large sector of population here who happen to be foreign students from China, there's very much little they can do. They've been pretty much controlled by the Chinese consulate, local Chinese consulates, who know their movements, who grant their visas or stipend to stay in Canada. Plus, they have the tool of using your family ties back home. That if you don't behave, your family will get into trouble, including like your brother-in-law losing his job. As far as Chinese Canadians are concerned, we also have a double whammy of sometimes language barrier, but most of the time I believe is indifference in people like RCMP. When you report to the local police, they'll say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. You can't prove it. Just because you received this phone call or this threat doesn't mean that we can go after somebody. In a sense, we're marginalized. We're seen as, wow, these are Chinese Canadian problems. As individual members, I think we have our way to, first of all, educate ourselves, to be more aware, look beyond what you're reading in your social media to see what is really happening in our society, in our civil society. We have been asking for a foreign agent registry, just like in the US, where they have it since 1930s. And we've been asking for a stronger enforcing power of RCMP. A foreign agent registry is not the panacea to everything, because people who are agents of China will not report to it anyway. But there's enough message of setting up a registry in such a way that you say, if do not register yourself as an agent for China, then you're liable for, being a crime. And there was a lack of political will, and what someone called willful blindness to the problem that we face of being infiltrated and interfered by China.